Hey, what's good, everybody? Hayward Crawford here. Here at another IMDb filmmaker commentary. We live stream not every, but Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So I'm back with another either a TV show or a movie. Just something I do kind of like when I get the time, trying to be a little more consistent, whether it's a classic movie, whether it's a TV show. I'm kind of going to be bobbing and weaving back and forth. Just kind of just goes off of what's kind of on my heart, or kind of like this great movie, this great TV show to talk about. You guys are more than welcome to send in requests or comment. If you recognize this TV show, remember this movie, and yeah, we just sort of chop it up here. I don't know if there's a lot of commentary shows like this. A lot of times they're very polished and edited, show movie clips and things like that. There's a lot of that out there already. So no point of going and becoming another going into a saturated market with the same spiel. So I thought, IMDb, they're always a great resource, always on there kind of nerding out, looking at different trivia. So if you're a movie or TV fan, it's always kind of a good resource to check out. So today, as you can see, we are going to be chopping it up, talking about The Sopranos. All right, The Sopranos. Once again, is one of those shows that unless you're kind of like on the younger generation, Gen Z or whatnot, you heard about it. Your parents have talked about it. You may have heard about the show, but yeah, this was kind of what could be credited as a start of golden era TV. It ran on HBO for 6 seasons technically. Their last season, season six, was broken into two. But overall, it ran for 8 years on HBO. I'm trying to make sure my audio. Hopefully, we could actually play the audio on this trailer, and it kind of plays through. But I think what's great about this show, as far as it really holds up after all these years. I've kind of gone back and watched a few episodes here and there, and it still has its share of controversy. I mean, it's got probably one of the highest ratings, 9.2. I think only that's matched that as far as TV shows, I believe, is The Wire and Game of Thrones. I think The Wire, Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, they kind of hover in that early nine out of 10 scale for IMDb. So that goes to show you. All right. So once again, New Jersey mob boss Tony Soprano deals with personal and professional issues in his home and business life that affect his mental state, leading him to seek professional psychiatric counseling. All right. So the first thing is we kind of deep dive into this. As you guys can see, HBO still has a stranglehold on The Sopranos. So you can find that on HBO Max, or now they call it Max, but it'll always be HBO to me. So I still call it HBO Max. I think the whole name change was, for me was like Lost Flight, to the HBO loyalists, but that's neither here nor there. David Chase. So once again, guys, David Chase is the showrunner, pretty much creator of the show. Um, and yeah, like look him up. Um, as far as what he's done that led up to The Sopranos, the guy, a lot of it was kind of based on his early life, kind of growing up in New Jersey, seeing similar these wise guys, sort of, mob characters growing up. Like I said, he kind of grew up in that '60s East Coast music scene. If we kind of dig a little deeper, I believe he got his start in the TV, think early on, like kind of back and forth. So as far as David Chase, to kind of give us an idea of where he came from and how his mind ended up bringing us what we call The Sopranos, I think it's cool that we do a deep dive. So he also loved the movies, Public Enemy, James Cagney, The Untouchables, early 30s, gangster movies, early 30s and 50s gangster movies. When not making music, he watched 1960s Hollywood and foreign films avidly. After his music career ended, he got inspiration to buy a movie camera um, and make his own movies. Okay. He studied at the Tisch School of Arts in NYU and later graduate film program at Stanford University. He began writing for network TV dramas in the early '70s. So talk about what's the word I'm looking for? Talking about 10,000 hours. Talk about the long game. And then he finally found his this later success. I think he was probably like in his early 60s when Sopranos premiered in the late 90s. So eventually became a writer and producer on the classic NBC detective show The Rockford Files. Once again, before my time. I remember he did work on a few TV shows. I don't know if it was Northern Exposure and all that, but okay, The Rockford Files with James Garner. While on Rockford, he penned many memorable episodes and pieces of dialogue. He won his first Emmy in 1978, the year Rockford won the award for the Best Dramatic Series. Many biographies incorrectly state that Chase won his first Emmy of writing the acclaimed TV movie Off the Minnesota Strip in 1980. Although it is insensitive, although see here, yeah, although it is insensitive. Can't read today, y'all. Got to get my real glasses. See, all right. Although it is sensitive and well-observed story about a young runaway trying to make sense of her life after being returned to her Midwestern family from a life of prostitution in New York City, Chase actually won his second Emmy and Writers Guild Award for that project. He then spent the 1980s and early 1990s getting paid for writing various TV scripts while writing feature film projects that never got produced. He also began directing his TV scripts whenever possible. He often told people stories about the troubled relationship he shared back in New Jersey with his mother. So once again, a lot of inspiration for what will go on to be the mother son relationship between Tony Soprano and Olivia Soprano on the show. Let's see. Oh, I lost it again. Okay. And a story about psychotherapy, which Chase had begun during this time. This intersections of ideas and themes led Chase to write the landmark pilot script to a show that the Fox network developed and passed on shooting. And I'm sure there's still some executives got fired. They're still kicking their feet to this day. Uh, HBO then decided to roll the dice with Chase on this odd mixture of a mother son conflict, mobster danger, and insecurities about psychological therapy. The result, The Sopranos, everybody connected with the project. Though they would film a pilot episode, it would not go to series, and that would be that. It has gone on to become one of the most successful shows to ever come out of the cable network. Chase and his crew have collected Emmy, Golden Globe, Writers Guild, Directors Guild awards for the show. In terms of its impact and subject matter, it has been compared to The Godfather. Chase vows to get his feature film projects off the ground as soon as Sopranos ends its run. So obviously that bio needs to be a little bit updated because since then, I think it was 2021. He came out with the Many Saints of Newark, which was the follow-up movie. Actually, it was the prequel movie to The Sopranos. So it kind of followed uh, early junior, a lot of the early characters, a young Tony Soprano, most notably. And yeah, so that was just good to give you guys an initial background on where The Sopranos came from, the creator behind it in his mind. So obviously stars James Gandolfini, the late great James Gandolfini, Lorraine Bracco, Edie Falco. So without maybe going into their profiles, I will just say off the top, Lorraine Bracco, best known from 1990s Goodfellas, extremely lauded movie. What else can you say? Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, Ray Liotta. And some fun fact about that, I actually listened to the Talking Sopranos podcast that came out with Steve Scrippa. He played Bobby Bacalari. And also Michael Imperioli, who played Christopher. They did like a Talking Sopranos podcast, like right during COVID, during COVID, everybody's at home. So they had Lorraine Bracco come on the show. And, and I remember even hearing about back then, like while the show was still airing, on how Lorraine Bracco did everything she can. She like avoided the Sopranos pilot like the plague. She was like, for years she swore off, I'm done playing mobster. I'm done doing being in mobster movies, anything mobster TV show related, or playing the wife of a mob boss. So it really was like by chance that her agents just kept bugging her. Hey, look at this script. Because I think at first David Chase was trying to approach her to be Carmela Soprano, the wife of Tony Soprano. And I think it was either they either approached her about being the mob wife, and then she ended up looking at the therapist, and she was like, "I want to be the therapist." Or I think they ended up approaching her and offered her like, "Hey, we think it'd be great for this Dr. Melfi role." So that was just very interesting. So yeah, definitely check out the Talking Sopranos podcast. That actually has two people who were on the Sopranos, so it was really great insight. Edie Falco, I know she was on like the HBO show Oz a couple years before, and they filmed the pilot back in '97. So I think when Oz actually first came on the air, Edie was on that show, and then she ended up auditioning and doing the pilot. So once again, I think beyond like Oz, I don't know. I know she was doing a few TV roles, but she was relatively unknown. And then, of course, James Gandolfini, while relatively unknown, I mean, he had a lot of great roles. And I think one of the ones that come to mind is True Romance. So I'll kind of go to his page, just give him a shout out, rest in peace. But I think Romance was a big one where, he had a very great role, like a support, like a great character role, supporting role alongside these other kind of bigger stars at the time. Yeah, so right here, True Romance, he was the Virgil Hitman. Um, see here. So yeah, I mean, he was his level of kind of like his training, his a lot of the work that he did. Ooh, let's see here. Yep. And then he went from that to The Sopranos. So yeah, unfortunately, he did pass in 2013, going on 11 years now, while vacation in Italy. I remember that was a big shock, when that happened. So yeah, a lot of heavy hitters. If we even go look at the stars, um, okay, I'm not going to go through all that, but you guys get the point. All right, so let's get into some of the nitty gritty. We're gonna go through some of these photos, kind of work our way down. My favorite part is when we get to the trivia. Okay, this is great right here. All right, so we got Michael Imperioli, Steve Van Zandt. Feel free to comment. What's your favorite memory from The Sopranos? Are those guys watching or listening? Or what's something that you valued about the show? Maybe something you didn't like about the show. Maybe you aren't a fan of The Sopranos. Um, or like, hey, tell me what happened. Do you think Tony died at the end? At the end of the finale. Hate to spoil it, but I'm not really spoiling it because it was kind of left ambiguously. But yeah, comment. What do you think? Did he die at the end, or did he kind of go on and live with his family? Who knows? All right, so I like to kind of go swing back through these photos to give us an idea, and then I kind of go through the seasons. You know, um, let's see here. Yeah, so it's just great to kind of go through here to just kind of brings you back to the show. Because once again, you can't really call Sopranos a '90s show. It came out late '90s, January '99, and then you hit the 2000s. So if anything, it was kind of like a tail end late '90s through early to mid 2000s show. Also, shout out to Tony Sirico. He fortunately passed a few years ago as well. He played Paul the Walnuts. Probably one of the more funnier performances. I think he should have got an Emmy for some of the seasons. Joe Pantoliano. Those guys know him best from Bad Boys, Captain John Howard. And yeah, he came in here, became one of the most despicable characters, and he played it so well. Ralph Cifaretto for I think season 3 and season 4. So Joe Pantoliano, I think he won an Emmy for that role. He was on the show for about 2 seasons, so he definitely played that kind of like you see this sort of theme with a lot of TV shows where they'll bring in these great guest stars, a lot of these characters that kind of come in and create all this tension and kind of shake things up. And he did that well for 2 seasons and got an Emmy out of it as well. So yeah, just kind of photo reminiscing. Shout out to Johnny Sack. Once again, the actor's real name is blanking out on me. Oh, how could you forget Janice, infamous sister Tony Soprano, and kind of that whole sister brother dynamic was probably one of the more entertaining aspects of the show. Let's see here. Olivia Soprano, who played, mother Tony Soprano for the first 2 seasons. And like I mentioned, going back to David Chase's real relationship with his mother, a lot of it was based off of what we saw on the show. So that was just very well done the way they kind of did that. You know, let's see here. Oh, Adriana Lacerva, played by the great Drea De Matteo. She was on the show for about 5 seasons. She ended up winning an Emmy her last season on the show. Once again, if I'm spoiling some of this, y'all need to go out and watch the show. I mean, it's been show ended over 15 years ago. So it's about well timed. Um, yeah. So we got Richie April, played by David Approval. He kind of came in there early in the series, shook a lot of things up. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he definitely. You got to watch the series to see how he turned out. That's all I'm gonna say. Well, actually, you know what? Those guys, Sopranos been around long enough. So, spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! If you still haven't watched The Sopranos, it's been over 15 years since it ended. Uh, Jump out this stream and come back to this later when you watched it. But I think once again, that was one of those moments when Richie April right here, when Janice took him out. That had to be kind of one of those HBO moments that you just didn't see coming because you really didn't like Janice's character. Just she came in season 2, nagging, mom been doing all these things, manipulate Tony, take advantage of situations, But when Tony was planning to take this guy out, he was giving him a lot of trouble. It was about to be done. Lo and behold, they're having dinner. They're making small talk. Janice says a few things he doesn't like. And once again, he hits her in the mouth. So now you're a wife beater. Now you're hitting women. So, of course, in my book and everybody's most reasonable people watching, okay, Tony really needs to take this guy out. Now he's beating up on his sister. He may not even know about it. We need to, do something about that. And lo and behold, Janice comes back, boom, and takes it out. All right, so that was a great moment as far as that goes. Yeah, just a lot of. Oh, I didn't know you got started on the show. I think it's Hal Holbrook. Okay. Oh, right here. Yeah, this is an episode where Paulie and Chrissy get lost in the woods. All right. So they end up basically, I think this was like season 3. So they're trying to chase down some sort of Russian hitman or some guy they have to execute. The guy ends up getting them lost in the woods. He escapes. They're in the woods. They're supposed to execute the guy. Bing, bada, boom, and now they're stuck in the woods. That's a great episode. I think it won an Emmy. Kind of like one of those bottle episodes, character studies, just Chrissy and Paulie out alone. So there's a lot of those sort of moments in the series. Like not only do you get the big grandiose episodes, we also have obviously the bottle episodes too. And once again, guys, you are watching Independent Day. Oh, Independent Day. You are watching comedian gameplay commentary. I mean, IMDb filmmaker commentary. That's a different show. Go to Script Sundays TV for that. So once again, IMDb filmmaker commentary live stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And I'm just sitting here chopping it up, talking about The Sopranos. Do you have a memory from the show? What was your favorite episode? Who was your favorite character? Maybe, was the whole ending BS? Do you think Tony died at the end? Do you think he went on to live? So we're talking anything's The Sopranos right now on IMDb filmmaker commentary. Kind of just going through some of these photos before we pop into trivia. Once again, IMDb has all these sort of, red carpet photos. So this was crazy. I forgot what episode this was. Who beat him up? I'm trying to remember that. And then we got this episode where pretty much AJ toward the end of the series kind of loses his mind, loses himself. Who am I? Where am I supposed to be on this planet? So that was, the last season was very interesting. A lot of people had very mixed reviews about it. Sometimes, I'll focus a little too much on AJ and whatnot. But I think, AJ's character, for better or worse, it definitely created another layer of complexity, headache for Tony to deal with. I can't say I like AJ's character. I don't think a lot of people can vouch for him. But at the same time, it was a very interesting study, especially when it comes to like teen depression, teens going through a period of loss. And that's something that still resonates today, whether it's Gen Z, whether it's millennial. At the time AJ was around my age as a millennial. But you'll see those same themes like throughout today, you know. Oh man, this fish scene. Those are guys are fans of the show. This was from, I believe, season 2 Funhouse. All right, when season 2 Funhouse, where Tony finally has a dream where he realizes one of his best friends, big. I don't know if I get YouTube flag for it. We'll say Big Pearly, but those guys, it's spelled Pussy. But I'll just say for the sake of YouTube, it censors Big Pearly. His name was Big Pearly. He was Tony's like number one, number two guy. And this is like another thing about The Sopranos, which I like, is there's probably not a more realistic. This is not. I don't think there's a more realistic sort of. I say realistic, but captivating way they do their dream sequences. Because as we know, dreams are random. Sometimes they mean something. Sometimes they don't mean anything at all. But I think The Sopranos, I haven't come across another TV show that got dream sequences so right or so relatable. So this is part of a dream sequence of Fishes where basically they tell him, hey, I work for the FBI, right? And the parody of this is like, hey, he's going to be sleeping with the fishes because the fish is speaking to Tony as his friend Big Pearly and saying, like, hey, work for the FBI, right? So Tony already knows like he's got to be sleeping with the fishes. This other great photo right here is a cat. I think this was like one of the later episodes toward the end of the run where the cat is staring at a picture of Chrissy. Chrissy, once again, spoiler alert, shouldn't be watching his live stream. If you have an interest in The Sopranos and you haven't seen it, well, guess what? Get out of this live stream, go watch it. But Chrissy ended up dying at the end of the series at the hands of Tony Soprano. So I told you, spoiler. And there's a shot of the cat like staring at the picture of Chrissy. And some conspiracy theorists kind of speculate, hey, that cat showed up oddly enough after Chrissy died. It started showing up around Sal's Sacciali's or whatever sub shop. And so some people are like, yeah, that's Chrissy reincarnated. The cat just keeps staring at Chrissy's photo. And I remember, I think Paulie was even like, get rid of that cat. Like Paulie got super paranoid. The cat just keeps staring at Chrissy's photo. So some theorists, some Soprano theorists are speculating, hey, Chrissy got reincarnated as the cat. I don't really, take that, but I don't really, dig that one, but hey, who knows? All right, this one, I will just say, we might as well talk about it from the Blue Comet episode. Blue Comet, once again, if you haven't seen The Sopranos, don't watch this stream. This is for the Sopranos fans, for those who want to go back, reminisce, comment on stuff. But this was from, I remember the Blue Comet. This was the, I think, second to the last episode of the series. And once again, Bobby Bacala, who was an avid fan of trains, he went to the train shop. And this is when the big mob war broke out between Phil Leotardo in New York and Tony Soprano in New Jersey. And fortunately, Bobby got caught in the crossfires. And if you go and watch the Blue Comet, if you make it, whether you watch the series already, go back and watch that episode. That scene, as far as like him getting shot up, the juxtaposition of the trains, building up the tension, the trains getting like one of the bullets hitting the train and she's getting shot, and it just all that is just an incredible scene. I'm pretty sure the Blue Comet got nominated for a couple awards. It was definitely one of the most like tension filled, like critically acclaimed episodes of the series. So the Blue Comet, right at the tail end of the last Sopranos season. So we're just, once again, you guys are watching IMDb filmmaker commentary. I live stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. We talk talk classic TV shows, classic movies. I just kind of chop it up, throw it up on IMDb. I don't know if anybody else is doing this sort of thing, but I like to not just follow the crowd, what everybody else is doing. So we come on here, just chop it up about it, drop a comment as far as, or question about the series, or your own comments on the series. Um, so as we continue, once again, the great Adriana Lacerva, Ralph Cifaretto, yeah, so many like good, great character actors. Hesh, the guy that played Hesh right over here, is kind of like a peer slash advisor to Tony. We got Carlo over here. It's kind of like the very strong but silent older henchman. He'll do some damage. There's a particular scene in the series as well. Bucko, I think that was Tony's childhood friend. He owns a restaurant, infamously in the first season. Once again, spoilers. Don't be on here if you haven't watched Sopranos. You want to watch the show. Spoiling away. But our Bucko, the first season, he had this fancy new restaurant that came out, and Tony Soprano ends up blowing up his restaurant for the insurance money. Damn near kills him, and then almost Artie Bucko shows up with a rifle ready to shoot Tony. Like, why did you burn down my restaurant? He's like, hey, it's for the insurance money, for protection. You're covered, man. So there's that. Once again, so many great moments here. Tony and Janice is probably one of my favorite sort of like going at it characters. They had some great moments. I believe Janice got nominated a couple different seasons for an Emmy. This is the infamous Richie Aprile scene. You got to admit, like, man, the way he went out, Janice Soprano, she earned some points. She gained some fans, because she first came in the first season, nobody liked her, and guess what? She started getting her like the weird sort of fans. Like, I don't know what I don't like you. I don't like your character, but what you did to Richie, you gained some points with us. So a lot of good moments. One of my criticisms, though, of The Sopranos, which a lot of people get, we got to talk about, of course, is once again, most of the black people, most of all the black people there we're just portrayed as other gangsters, just like black gangsters they do collaborations with, or do business with, and that's how it is pretty much most of the time. I will say there was one character, a black character, who was he was like a preacher, or he worked as like some sort of community organizer. He kind of became like, he would pop in on the show every now and then throughout the series. The guy's name's escaping me. So it kind of showed, I don't know whether it was just to kind of make up for, like, we show nothing but black gangsters getting going to war with the Italians. But, little touches like that where it's like, okay, this guy's just a community organizer, he's a preacher, but him and Tony do a little bit of business together. They kind of have these cordial conversations. I don't know if it was just making up for a lot of the black gangsters they had on the show, but it was still a moment to where, like, okay, yeah, in a weird way, yeah, a lot of these guys, most of these guys are racist. They have these, bigot or preconceptions of black guys, as far as like, hey, they're done, but criminals and whatnot, or so people we do business with, the people are going to war with. So I think that complexity in the series is very authentic. So while they do have, I think there was a season where his daughter Meadow had a black or half African or a biracial boyfriend, and then Tony really made his intentions known, like, about, hey, I don't want someone like you with my daughter. So yeah, like, at the end of the day, like, let's call out a spade. Like, a lot of these characters, not only were they kind of murderers, they did illegal activity, but yeah, they were also racist on top of that. Racist to a lot of different ethnicities, blacks especially. So we can call that out. Two things can be true at the same time. Yet he has this relationship, or like at least a cordial civil relationship, with this black community organizer preacher who guest stars on the series every now and then. They see eye to eye on a lot of different things. Tony still has those racial, he still harbors that racial, those racial views, but at the same time, it could show that, hey, people can still coexist in a way. And the black guy probably has views to him. He knows who he is and who they run with and their perceptions and who they deal with. So I think that's just a interesting thing to kind of point out on the series, that it's not so black and white. You can't just paint one character as just this, because they're all even down to like Edie Falco, Carmela Soprano. She has her own character flaws and is her own bad person as well on the series. So, uh, so yeah, a lot of. Oh, that's another great scene from a dream sequence as well. The episode's escaping me. Uh, oh yeah, Big Pearly, for the sake of YouTube. I think he just found out somebody saw him talking to a fed. So he had to go over his house and take him out. Dr. Melfi. Fun fact: Dr. Melfi. Oh, another dream sequence of Tony, where he died in a car accident. And another funny thing about Dr. Melfi is that she complained to David Chase about how it ended. And I think that was always something in my head as well, as far as like, it did seem like she kind of just abruptly left the series and just kind of left Tony Soprano hanging. Like just getting mad that she realized, oh, she can't help him. For me, I would have found it very, at least the fans, it would have been a much better closure if Dr. Melfi like had like a final phone call with Tony, said, "Hey, you know what? I got a lot of things going on. It was wrong the way I treated you. I just need some time away. You need some time to figure some things out." And it could be the phone call. It could have been an in-person meeting. I feel like that would have been the closure for her exit. But the fact they kind of just made her into like this, just pissed off, like, oh well, I don't think I could help you, or like she just became this very passive aggressive, threw Tony out the office, and that was the last time we saw her. So I don't know if that was just oversight on David Chase. He's trying to, tie together all these plot holes or all bring it all together for the series. But I think that was a big misfire. And LeBrain Bracco came on the Michael Imperioli, Steve Scrippa podcast and did mention that. So that did remind me, like, oh yeah, they did kind of do her dirty, as far as like that last scene was just very, turn her into like this uptight bitch. So yeah, I think that would have been ideal. They had that last phone call. She called Tony, or she showed up like, hey, I was upset, blah blah blah. So that was kind of my maybe one of my many criticisms of the finale, if you will. So a lot of great moments. I think this was from like season one, where both Paulie and Chrissy, they're going after, I think, Mikey Palmese. It's weird how I can remember some characters' names, don't remember the actors. I can remember the actor's name, not the character. But yeah, season one, when Junior Corrado, Tony's uncle, does the coup on against Tony, they go back and they take out Junior's guys. So once again, guys, you are watching IMDb Filmmaker Commentary. We live stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. We're talking The Sopranos. Let us know. Let me know, what was your favorite memory of The Sopranos? Did you like how it ended? Or, anything about The Sopranos. We could chop it up. If you loved it, hated it, this is what we're here to do. Once again, I had my share of criticisms with it. Oh, shout out to the great John. I forgot his last name, but he was a Home Alone dad. Those watch Home Alone. It was Home Alone's dad. He was like this corrupt, drunk cop, working for Tony. So shout out to I think John McIntyre or something like that. So yeah, he was on the show series early on. See here. Yeah, so many great moments. I'm gonna go through like different episodes. Yeah, the Pine Barrens episode, like I mentioned, it's got some Emmy nominations. Paul and Chrissy, they lost track of a Russian henchman they were supposed to execute. He runs off in the woods, and now Paulie and Chrissy are going through the woods looking for him. See here. Yeah, so many memories. This is what it's about. Because it'll probably be a few years before I go back, maybe with my wife and kids, and rewatch. Well, most of our kids are old enough, but to rewatch the series. So this is kind of like a nice nostalgic sort of trip without me spending 100 hours watching the whole series again. So a lot of great moments. I believe this is when the end of season 5, where Carmela and Tony got back together. And I remember this where, he was separated from her throughout season 5. He was staying in his mother's old house. And I think what was really interesting. Shout out to I think Van Lathan. Yeah, Van Lathan. He did a little Sopranos pod. He's part of the Ringer crowd. Those guys follow Bill Simmons, the Ringer podcast. They mentioned a really good point on how like there's all types of bad characters on this show, and Carmela Soprano's not immune. Where after all the cheating and all the things she knows about what Tony did to build this empire, what he ends up doing to take her for her to take him back is she's like, well, pay for my spec house, or the house is being built. Like a summer house is being built. They call it a spec house. He's like, okay, she's like, I need this amount. He's like, okay. She's like, okay, you can come home. So that just goes to show you, like, there's no like good or bad person, or this person who's a moral superiority pedestal. She's like, you know what? I know who you are, what you do, all the women you slept around with, but you know what? I'm numb at this point. Just pay for my summer house and you can move back in with me and the kids. And he does. So I remember that was the scene from that. I think the episode ended right after that. What we got here? Oh yeah, Patsy Parisi, the Parisi twins. Yeah, just all types of funny, different characters, and kind of who lives and who dies and who becomes this sort of character, different characters and where they end up in the series. It's always interesting to see where things go. Let's see here. Yeah, so many moments. Oh, this is great. Okay, yeah, this is Big Pearlie's home, and that whole episode, like I mentioned, season 2, Funhouse, where I think Tony gets food poisoning, and he's sick, and he's in the bed, he's having these dreams, he's falling asleep, and he ends up having the dream. He ends up having the epiphany that Big Pearlie, who one of his best friends, is number 2 guy, is working for the feds, and he just knows it. They do this thing where they go over to his house, like, hey, let's take on a fishing trip. They distract you. They distract him. They come over his house. They distract him in the living room while Tony goes upstairs, finds the wire. That whole episode is just it's like it's like a slow train wreck, like in a good way. So they end up setting him up. Hey, let's go out on this boat. Let's go fishing. And he's out in the middle of nowhere to run. And yeah, I think Van Lathan also brought up a good point. Like the people on here, there's people on the show that they don't know, they don't have affiliation with, they'll just kill off. You know, but then unfortunately they have that same vigor for someone who was like a longtime best friend. Turns out they were ratting on them. They may hold back some emotions, but they still do what they got to do and kill them with the most ruthlessness. So this is a scene where they're pushing his body into the waters. Paulie was kind of baiting him to get on the new boat, Tony's new boat. Let's go take it for a ride. And I think you can just tell throughout the dread. You can feel the dread in Big Pearlie's character, from being in the living room, being at his house, to being on the boat. You see that dread later with Adriana, like the dread of their wildest fears coming to life. So The Sopranos is a great show as far as like sort of foreboding or foreshadowing that impending doom on those characters who know like their fate is sealed. And it's just all the more tragic because even though all these characters, even Adriana, they've all done bad things. They're all shitty people. It's still very heartbreaking when you see them go. You see kind of their journey, how they maybe get caught up with the feds in different situations. They're trying to navigate and find a way out and not rat on their friends. And and then they end up at the end of the day, they end up on the chopping block. So see here, yeah, a lot of great moments of the series. Livia Soprano, probably one of the biggest mind trips. There's a mind F word I'll say, but I won't say it. That had an everlasting effect on Tony. Phil Leotardo, he went on to kind of become the mob boss, take over for Johnny Sack. He became the main antagonist of the later seasons. Yeah, Adriana. Yeah, I think this is the moment where Chrissy found out Adriana was the Fed, and his performance in that, like him going through all these different emotions. Once again, shout out to Van Lathan over at Bill Simmons, The Ringer. They kind of talked about this in depth. But That was probably one of the best performances of Michael Imperiola's career, career, her spelling to him that, "Hey, I'm a Fed," and just the level of range and emotion going through his face when he finds that out, and then what he has to do and tell Tony Soprano, like, "Hey, my girl's been working for the Feds," and we didn't know that he told her, and then they set her up, and end up Sal taking her out to the woods. It's just it was just TV doesn't get better than that. TV was just man. Um, Vito had an interesting. He was like kind of like one of the henchman guys. He had a later storyline where it turns out he's gay. He's in the he's in clubs doing these different things. He gets outed. He goes on the run. So the Sopranos wasn't afraid to talk about those subjects, and literally, like he ended up kind of losing his life for it. But very interesting character arc with that. I mean, at first he was just another kind of like red shirt, henchman for the mob family. But you see him go through this whole arc where his sexual identity and trying to hide that and run away from it, and it ultimately catches up to him. So The Sopranos kind of went there with a lot of stuff. Um, yeah, these the early episodes with Carmela Soprano and her priest, and them kind of having this ambiguous, they almost end up sleeping together. As much as she wants to do, she was like loyal to Tony. Tony's sleeping around. You see right here. Brought the preacher back over, brought the priest back over to her house. What do you think's going to happen? You know. Um, so yeah, so this is like I mentioned the great scene. Artie confronting Tony like, "Why'd you burn down my restaurant?" Um, oh yeah, and then AJ end up like having a suicide attempt. That kind of adding on to the stress of Tony in those last episodes. Junior Soprano, Furio, yeah, another henchman. They end up almost having an affair, like him and Carmelo Soprano. So I'm kind of going through spoilers, but like I said, don't watch the stream if you haven't watched the show. You know, um, we're about reminiscing, going back, looking at stuff. Yeah, this is like from the pilot right here. Yeah, early. Yeah, it's like from like the '97 pilot. Once again, Ralph Cifaretto, he had this whole episode where he loved the movie Gladiator, so he's going around terrorizing people with quotes and hitting doormen upside the head, trying to recreate the movie. Um, yeah, so many moments, y'all. So many moments. All right, see what else we got. Oh yeah, this is where they almost executed Chrissy. Chrissy's assuming, you know, Tony and Chris had some tension in season 5, thinking Tony and Adriana were bumping head or bumping uglies, but that wasn't the case. But Chrissy had his suspicions. Tony and his different affairs with different women. Notably, a lady who ended up killing herself, and the weight that weighed on Tony. Oh, this is another flashback. This is like a flashback scene to a young Junior Soprano and Tony's dad, who died before the series started. Um, and it's a lot of great moments in the series, too many to count. We'll go through the episode count. We'll go through the episodes real quick. Um, yeah, let's see here. Yeah, so this is Sopranos in his later years, I think '06, '07, towards the tail end. Obviously, everyone's a little older. Let's see here. And just the level, like I just remember like they had like a special like when the I don't think they do this anymore. When a TV show ends, they have like a special honoring of The Sopranos. This was in 2007 at the Emmy Awards. I remember there's not a lot of TV shows that end and they do a whole honoring segment of the TV show. Like I remember that from The Sopranos. Um, and then of course the last scene we got to talk about the diner episode. Did he die? Did he live? There's been a lot. There's been enough of that sort of debate discussion. Let me know what you think. Did Tony die or did Tony live in that final diner episode? See here. And so many great moments. And I might as well scroll through this because I won't probably ever do this again. Oh, yeah. Once again, great dream sequences. They'll bring back dead characters. Steve Buscemi who played Tony Blundetto, season five. When Tony's having a Tony, yeah, when Tony went into a coma after Uncle Junior shot him. We went through all these sequences, all these different, epiphanies, if you will. Man, sorry, I guess I'm getting a little more joy out of this than the viewer. I get it. This isn't your typical live stream. It's not like, oh, look at me, oh, doing all this stuff. Hey, we're just chopping up on you. If you're a Sopranos fan, if you're a TV fan, you get it. If you're kind of like looking for like a quick 30-second TikTok, ooh, like something to keep you distracted, this ain't the place. We keep it we chop it up here, but this is the layback. This is the kickback. You come here for TV fans, film fans. Everybody's welcome, but we're not here to. I'm not here to do with like a 30-second TikTok monkey, doing dances. All right, so let's see what we got here. So yeah, a lot of great moments. A lot of great moments. I'm just reminiscing. Oh, this is from the lake scene where Tony and Bobby and the wives went out on the lake, and then a lot of those bottle episodes, a lot of family drama tension. This is early 2000s episode, kind of early 2000s era, photo shoot right here. I think season two. Yeah, great moments. Adriana looking fine as she can be. Oh, I don't know what happened. I think that was Janice beating up a soccer mom. I remember that. That's a dream sequence. I remember one particular season. And this is Once again, these two with Big Pearly. That's their final. Like say goodbye to their friend. Man. Once again, you guys are listening, watching IMDb Filmmaker Commentary live streams on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. I just reminisce on different movies, TV shows. If you have a request, maybe something. This is a popular enough movie. This is some fringe movie I've probably never seen. It's not going to do me much good. But, a classic popular movie or TV show. Want me to come talk about it? You can come in the chat. We can chop it up. Feel free to let me know. IMDb Filmmaker Commentary. I missed the 90s, that computer. Man, 90s, baby. All right. Yeah, a lot of these photos I'm just seeing for the first time. I mean, some of these moments you recognize from the series, but a lot of the stuff I'm seeing for the first time. And I guess it was boring to some viewers. Hey, you're not a Sopranos fan, you know. But like I said, I'm always open to a TV show or movie that you may want to talk about. Uh, oh yeah, I remember this from the end of the series. Last episode had a lot of kind of randomness where he blew up his car in an accident, and a lot of kind of random stuff like what does this have to do with closing down the series? So I kind of remember that. Um, you just never know what TV shows will get a finale right. You just never know. Sopranos or Dexter or Breaking Bad. It's kind of a crapshoot at this point, or Ozark. What shows really get it right? Homeland really got it right. There's a lot of other shows that really got it right. You know. Oh man, we got to talk about this one. So this was the scene college. This is like I think a season one episode where Tony's taking Meadow to different colleges, like a college tour, seeing different universities, and he spots this guy that snitched like maybe 10 years ago or so. And by happen chance, and Tony ends up taking it upon himself to snuff him out personally. And the juxtaposition of him taking his daughter to college, like they get a motel, he sends her off to the campus to look at some things. He goes off and murders the guy, picks her back up. She's like, "What is this? What is this mark? You got scratches on your hand." He's like, "Oh, I don't know what. I don't worry about that." So that was the first time we saw. I think this was like Tony's first on-screen killing, where once again, this is controversial for the time. Like early 1999, a TV show main character, this anti-hero who kills a person, a guy on screen like that. That was just unheard of at the time. You know, I remember that episode was very critically acclaimed. Definitely got turned a lot of heads. And of course, like even in the early seasons, they kind of backed down by the end. The early seasons, like, just like with The Wire, there were a lot of critics who were like, "Oh, the way you're depicting black people, we're just nothing but drug dealers and welfare queens." And same with, there's a lot of Italian American advocacy groups that really came for The Sopranos. They boycotted, they went after, they attacked the creator and the show and HBO. So this was kind of one of those episodes where they kind of flared that back up again. But from a TV show writing standpoint, that was a classic. This was great. Yeah, season one, where Tony was heading to the hospital. This is after Tony became aware of the whole coup, the entire coup against him between his uncle Junior and his, and it was carried, and it was basically bought in or blessed by his mother. He found out about the coup. He didn't know where Uncle Junior was, but he went to the nursing home. Just seen him walking through the hallway, grabbing a pillow, like about to smother his mother. And then his mother, like ended up getting a heart attack or something. So they're wheeling her out just as he's about to smother her. And he's like, "I know what you did. I know what you did." And then she's like smiling, like she's like almost dying from lack of oxygen. She's having some sort of heart attack, but she's smiling. And he's like, "No, look." They're trying to hold him back. Like, "No, look, she's smiling. Look, she's smiling." Like that was a moment. That was just another moment in the series. Like, God damn, this show is crazy. These characters, these man, you know. So what a vibe. Crazy vibe. All right. So yeah, right here. Yeah. So once again, if you haven't seen the show, don't watch this stream. But yeah, this was she was a Fed. She was a Fed that hooked on and became a friend, just started acting just like Adriana, and they ended up becoming buddies and met at the mall, and she just ended up hooking her in to the feds getting some dirt on her. So she played that well. That was tragic to see. Oh man, also shout out to Jackie Aprile Jr. There's this whole storyline where he was trying to like work his way up or maybe take some shortcuts to work his way up through the mob ladder. He ended up being like, "Oh, Tony and Ralph and them back in the day, they robbed the card game and they got pats on the backs." And he ended up trying to recreate the opposite. Guy ends up getting killed. And then basically everything goes wrong. They end up having to kill the guy. So, this right here too. I won't go into details, but another thing about this Ralph Cifaretto character, even though he won an Emmy, he won it at being one of the most despicable characters. He was dating the stripper that worked at the strip club. And all I will say is there is a scene that unfortunately, like, that happens. Tony ends up kind of beating up Ralph for it, but at the same time, it was very warranted. As much as Tony is this sort of mob boss who's killed people, at the same time, when he sees innocence, whether it's like a dog or a horse, there's a big episode with a horse that he has an attachment to, or like this innocent stripper, it goes to show layers of Tony we haven't seen before. Okay. Whew, a lot more photos. Might as well get through them all. Once again, you guys are watching IMDb Filmmaker Commentary. I live stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I'm your host, Hayward Crawford, or at Hayward Hal Crawford. Either or, I'll probably pull up, show up on your search. So yeah, that's what we do every I mean, not every, but Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays when I can. I like to come up, talk about a TV show, talk about I talk about a TV show, talk about a classic movie, you know. Um, and yeah. So there's a lot here with this TV series. Oh wow, obviously you see what's about to happen with Phil. So I'm kind of just going through the photo trivia section. I'm about to go to trivia section next, but I like to kind of reminisce, go through the photos, see what episodes I can kind of recognize those moments. If you're a real TV show fan or a real Sopranos fan, you kind of get nerd out here with me. If you're not a Sopranos fan, this live stream is probably not for you. So I don't blame you. I don't fault you for that. Um, see here. Yeah, so many great moments. I think it was like Carmela doing some karaoke. Jackie Rosalie Aprio, she was the widow of the late former mob boss. Man, classic. Just iconic photos from the series. Great scene where Tony assassination attempt. Um, yeah, you got that going on. So, Junior Soprano shooting Tony, that infamous scene. So many great moments from these photos that you can kind of look at and like just uh, just great reminiscent. Oh, Charles S. Dutton. Oh, okay, I didn't know he. Forgot he guest starred on the show. Good for him. One of the goats. His character Dylan in Alien 3, one of my favorites. Man, a lot more photos than I anticipated, but by golly, while I'm here, I'm gonna get through 'em. You know, hell or high water. Yep. This was the oh man, once again the Big Pearly episode. Janice shooting at Richie. I think I'm gonna start doing that. We got to get enough fans on the show. We need enough fans like who know the show or know the movie. I can be all right. Guess this scene. What happens in this scene in this photo? What happens to this scene in this photo? You know. Okay. All right. We got to call it. The photos never end. All right. So let's get into some episodes, and then we'll end with trivia. The trivia can go on forever as well. All right. So once again, season one. That's kind of Steps universe. A lot of great moments. Basically, this season was just reminiscent of the coup, the building coup of his uncle Junior and his mother Livia against him. Because initially, Junior's boss, but Tony is doing a lot of these things, kind of running things, behind his uncle's back. And basically, everybody by the end of the season, Junior realizes like, yo, my nephew's stepping over me, really doing everything to undermine me as boss. I'm gonna take him out. So that was sort of the culmination of season one. Now let's get into season two, which is season one was 99. Now we're in 2000. So once again, Big Pearly, you know, obviously means something else. He gets back from hiding. Obviously, he did his stint. He got caught pushing H, and then they came to him like, "Hey, you got to go out. You got to go and become a foreman." So this brings in Richie Aprile, who was the brother of Jackie Aprile, the former boss who died of cancer the previous season. So bringing in tension because now this guy Tony's the new boss. His brother was the old boss, so they've been kind of butting heads. He's a made man. There's a lot of tension there. Um, you brought in Janice Soprano came in this season. So a lot of kind of people coming in, intermixing into the mix. See here. And then of course it kind of ends with Richie Aprile meeting his end. And then of course, Big Pearly meeting his end as well. So a lot more to the season than that. But once again, those are kind of some of the highlights. I'm just kind of reminiscing through each season. Once again, 9.3, 9.4. Those episodes were, man. Now we're going to season 3, 2001. I think I had a very interesting opening. I remember they were doing this whole viewpoint of the feds. So the FBI is like the whole episode is like a perspective of the FBI spying on each of the Soprano mob members that are following Tony's family. So very interesting the way they kind of did that. This season brought uh, I think Nancy Merchant, who played Olivia Soprano the previous season. She died the previous year before in 2000. So I believe the last scene of her was they did it with CGI. And it looked really real for like 2000 for 2001 effects. Like it looked very real. I don't know how they did that or they did sort of motion capture, but they did this last scene between him and his mother. And yeah, basically she looked damn near like a real person. So for the last scene for closure, then she ended up passing because Nancy Merchant died the previous year. This season sees Ralph Cifaretto come in. Once again the rambunctious maid guy causing all the tension. This scene too, where Dr. Melfi she ends up getting, I don't know how to say this on YouTube, RAPE. And it was a very interesting character study where she sees this happen. She go, yep. As soon as I said it, the viewer left. Yeah, it was a heavy episode, and a very interesting character study to where she the ongoing study of what's good and bad characters and different choices they make, and she was basically like, hey, you know what, my patient is a mob boss, and this person who did this horrible act to me, I could have him crushed just like that. But she was saying that to her therapist, like her own therapist she was going to. So it was a very interesting study. I think one of her best episodes, Lorraine Bracco, where she's confronted with like, hey, I could have this guy taken care of. I found out where this guy who violated me works. And I could easily, during the session, she's thinking with Tony, she could easily be like, he's like, everything okay? She's like, no, everything's fine. So that was just another crazy one. And once again, University, another heavy episode, like I mentioned before, escalates the tension between Tony and Ralph. And it kind of just goes to show just how despicable people can be. As great as he played that role, just the amount of despicable acts he committed just goes to show like, hey, this is the way of the world, like for people like these characters. So season 3, like I mentioned, the Pine Barrens episode had a 9.7. I mean, it was a good episode, but 9.7, still. So that was sort of, oh yeah, then the season also culminates with Jackie Jr. making a really bad decision with his card game that goes wrong. He tries to do that because he heard this what the old guys did. Turns out it ends up not going in his favor. Somebody gets killed. They make a decision that Jackie Jr. has to get taken out. So that was a real rough one. So now we're going into season 4 of 2002, where once again we still have Ralph Cifaretto in the mix. There's once again some sort of growing tension between Chris and Tony. It's a little subtle this season from what I remember. Columbus Day. This is interesting for a lot of people that like timely, relevant episodes. Even back then, they weren't afraid to kind of touch on the subject. Columbus Day, with his once again Italians in the street fighting with Native Americans about the holiday. This is, call it progressive, if you will. This is from 2002. Yeah, my freshman year in high school. Oh man, great times. Yeah, Pio Mai. This is a horse that Tony invested in with Ralph. There's a whole history behind that. And then yeah, there's the episode where Ralph meets his end, where Tony accuses him of killing his horse with insurance money. And one thing leads to another. And then finally, the tension escalates. I think Furio and Carmela, yep, we're having a thing. It's a potential affair. I don't think they end up sleeping together. Maybe they shared a kiss. But it ends up building. Carmela just can't take Tony's crap anymore, Tony's infidelity with different women. So the end of the season does culminate with Carmela kicking Tony out the house. They have a big fight. They're separated. You know, she cuts her hair short in rebellion and then kicks him out the house. So a lot of sort of things sort of build up, end up mounting with season 4 in 2002. Now we go to season 5, 2004. So once again, like Sopranos just continues on this run, this sort of triathlon, So now we got season 5 hitting the airwaves, 2004. There's this kind of like this class of 2004 where a bunch of mob members, I think they got busted in like the late 80s, get released from prison after 15 years for some sort of heist. That includes Phil Leotardo, who becomes one of the new minor antagonists, who was in the New York family. We also got Tony Blundetto, played by Steve Buscemi. He's one of the ones that comes from that prison release with a lot of the people that got busted. So now it creates this whole new crazy dynamic. Johnny Sack's still the boss in New York, but now he has to deal with a lot of these mob members that came out 15 years later. And then Tony has to deal with his other cousin, Tony. We start to see Junior Soprano going through a little bit of a mental health decline, as you can see. All these slight remarks about Tony at dinner, a lot of these weird things he's doing that it has, like, Bobby and his wife Janice concerned. I remember there's like growing tension between, like growing sexual tension between Tony and Adriana, season 5. Also, she's inadvertently, or at this point, has no choice but to kind of work cautiously with the feds. So that's building along with this relationship with Tony. See here. Once again, the Tony Carmela, they're still separated. He comes over to the house for events to make appearances. There's still that tension there. Tony and her sister, they still have a lot of conflict. A really big fight too, as well. It's really notable. And then things just kind of culminate. There ends up being like Tony, unfortunately, cousin Tony Blundetto. He just can't let things go. The tension between New York family and the New Jersey family builds. Tony takes some people out on the New York family side. They retaliate. And basically, as that culminates, you got Adriana, who finally has to fess up to working for the feds, and this whole confrontation with her and Chrissy. And Chrissy realizing that her daughter was his girl was working for the feds. That whole revelation building along with this building war between the New York family, the New Jersey mafia family, and yeah, so that is a culminating. Unfortunately, Adriana ends up getting taken out. Chrissy ends up ultimately signing his loyalty with Tony, goes straight to him, tells him what happens. They end up having to set her up to go out in the woods, and Sal takes care of her. Sil takes care of her. And then at the same time, we got Tony Blundetto, who ends up, like I said, killed a couple people in the New York family, including Phil Leotardo's brother, his younger brother. So Tony ends up having to be like, all right, let me take care of him, because they, at this point, is done. They're going to kill his cousin Tony. So Tony has to take him out. So that was another kind of gut wrencher as well. So that, I would say, the triathlon, like that, it could have ended right there. In my opinion, The Sopranos high was season 5, in my opinion. Kind of like was similar with 24. 24 with Jack Bauer, Kiefer Sutherland. Each season built upon the next. And season 5 just had everything you could ask for and more. And it just kind of built upon that. So really, in my opinion, how 24 could have ended after season 5, how Weeds could have ended after season 3. Sopranos could, on a high note, it could have just ended at season 5, and it would have been like perfect. But HBO capital, a lot of things get in the way. Want to make a little more money. HBO was like, we gotta run this cash cow out a little bit more. I think once again, Soprano. There were a lot of things I liked about season six coming up. I'm about to talk about. There were a lot of things I liked, but there were some weak points. There was some filler in there. We could tell they were just trying to stretch out episodes. But season five, it could have Sopranos could have ended season five. I think most people would have been happy with that. But we're gonna get into season six. So going off of 2004, I'd say one of the high ends. I think Sopranos won several Emmys for best drama series, best cast. I believe also Dre De Matteo, she won the Emmy Award for Adriana that season. So once again, there was season five was like that peak pinnacle where okay, we could kind of just sit back and ride off to the sunset. But we'll get to season six, which had some great episodes. So season six, part one, uh, 2006. So my my high school graduation year. So once again, this is me reliving high school right now. As far as when The Sopranos was running, it started when I was like in middle school, and then it ended, a year after, after my first year in college. But season six, once again, had a pretty slow start. I mean, I do like I think members only that caught a lot of acclaim, really because of the last scene. Junior shoots Tony at the end of the episode. That was like very shocking, out of left field. So I think that's kind of why he got a higher rating here. But after that, it kind of, and then also Gene, who was a kind of a side mob character. He ended up just sort of, he kind of had a weird. He didn't really have much of a storyline throughout the season. I think he came in season three, season four, kind of popped in, and then all of a sudden, season six, we get this whole storyline with him throughout the episode. And then you got to realize, okay, you get this character all of a sudden getting all the screen time, he's going to get whacked. And that's kind of what happened. So I think between that wasn't as like, I think critically acclaimed or like what a lot of people loved about the episode. I think it was just the last scene with Junior shooting Tony. So we go through this. Tony's in a coma. Next couple episodes, there are some great dream sequences. Like I mentioned, The Sopranos has probably the best dream sequences as far as the realism, the irony, the heartbreak of it, but just sort of the weird randomness of dreams as well. So then by this time, during this time, I believe the mob family is kind of in disarray. They're trying to find ways to run the mob family with Tony in a coma. I think by this time Tony comes out of a coma. Yep, right over here. Um, and yeah, it's kind of back to tension. I think right after this, the whole Vito's gay thing sort of happens where Vito gets outed for his lifestyle. He's on the run. So now Johnny Sack and all this, Johnny Sack and Phil Leotardo, they're dealing with this sort of like embarrassing shame of like someone in their New York family, being found guilty of this. So I think by this time, see here. So season six, once again, like it had, like I said, the whole Vito's gay storyline and Tony coming back from being shot. But I just feel like there were a lot of sort of episodes that seemed very fillery. There wasn't as much focus. And if you go back to the reviews on this, like the early part of season six, there was a lot of that where I didn't feel as engaged with each episode. It was kind of just very autopilot-y, kind of like with ER in his later seasons of ER. You stopped hearing like the crazy music, the crazy shots. It was just kind of very, business as usual with ER in his later seasons. Kind of with this, I feel like with this season with The Sopranos as well. Then tensions once again build up. I think Phil has a heart attack or something like that. And then once again, now we're going to 2007. We're at season six, part two. So once again, a year, June 2006. So I'm graduating high school, heading off to college. Now we got 2007, where we got season six, part two. So I remember just sort of like this summer, first summer out of college, like, oh, we got the next season of last season of Sopranos. It's kind of all that hype, So once again, it builds slow, very bottle episode character study with Tony, Carmela, Bobby, and Janice off at the summer house. So it starts out real slow again. But once again, it's character building. We see these tensions align. Phil's back on top. Phil's covering, but the tensions start to build between the two families once again. Um, Paulie and Chrissy going at it for some little thing, and then of course we got the episode Kennedy and Heidi, which is Chrissy's swan song. Chrissy bites the dust, and at the hands of his uncle Tony Soprano. Once again, shouldn't be watching this if you haven't watched the show. So Kennedy and Heidi was one of those episodes where once again you see a character like Tony, like man, you just see the fact that he always saw Chrissy as like someone that could take over, a mentor. He definitely saw him in a better light than his own son AJ. But at the same time, Chrissy and his drug addiction, just different things that would either put him and his family at risk. Chrissy can get picked up for a drug charge and could end up snitching to the feds. His girlfriend Adriana did the same thing. So it all culminated where they get into this car accident. And once again, I'm spoiling it here, but it's for Sopranos fans who already watched the series. And he ends up like, oof, basically, yeah, he ends up smothering Christopher, where he sees the baby seat in the back. Like, okay, not only could you get busted for drugs and rat my family out, you can also be driving and end up killing a baby or doing something crazy because you're still not clean. So I think all that culminated like this was the perfect opportunity where you know what, I gave you plenty of chances, and you know what, it's time for you to go, time for me to take care of you. So that episode was a heavy one. The second coming, yeah, I remember this is where I think AJ has a suicide attempt. I don't know why this was so highly rated. I mean, it did have a heavy scene with him like attempting suicide, which is pretty crazy. Tony saves him, so I guess that did get a lot of fanfare, I guess. Um, but yeah, it's yeah. So that episode, and then we're at the tail end, y'all. The Blue Comet, like I mentioned before, it's one of those episodes where the mob war breaks out and it becomes a war. It becomes, we lose some good people. It becomes all out, Tony versus Phil, New York versus New Jersey, the culmination of everything, the choices they made, and things going from bad to worse. Things escalate. We lose Bobby. Sil is in a coma. Um, it's just where Tony's put to the test. Like this is where we're at now. They're finally made in America. Once again, Tony strikes a deal with the New York family. They fess up and say, "Hey, Phil, he's gone off the deep end. We're not going to give him up, but you guys do what you got to do. You want to take him out, fine. We're not going to stop you. We're not going to give up where he is, but we gave you the green light to go at him, and we'll clean up the mess." So there's that. There's the culmination of Tony reconciling with his, what his relationship with what his wife looks like moving forward. His daughter, his daughter, his son, the rest of the mob family. A lot of questions. Some questions are left unanswered. We get some closure, like I mentioned in the Blue Comet. Kind of wish there was a little more closure with him and Dr. Melfi. She kind of just stormed off, pissed off at him. But that's neither here nor there. And yeah, so yeah, that's it. Unless I think of anything else. So that's in a nutshell. At least my sort of crash course reminiscing on the series. Last thing, we'll get to some trivia. I'd like to end with some fun trivia. I know there's a bunch of it. Not going to get through all of it. I'm going to probably wrap up here in the next probably 10, 15 minutes. Let's see here. Hold on, y'all. I know I'm getting dead air, but 12:15, I will be wrapped out of here. Okay. All right. So, trivia. James Gandolfini said that he was often contacted by by real life wise guys, complimenting him on the authenticity of the series as well as giving him advice. Yeah, yeah, it's good that he got their blessing. It makes the show all the more authentic. David Chase only directed 2 episodes, the first and the last. So he only directed the 1997 pilot, and then he directed 10 years later the Made in America series finale. Perhaps I remember that. Remember that trivia when it came out. It's said that for some scenes, James Gandolfini inserted a small stone in his shoe to anger him, making him play the role of Tony Soprano more authentically. He would also stay awake all night for some of the breakfast scenes to achieve a tired look. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. An actor's actor, like a method actor. This was the guy, James Gandolfini. Like, who does that? All right. That's dedication. That's what I'm talking about. All right. After the pilot aired, a real wise guy told James Gandolfini to never wear shorts again. The encounter seems to have been incorporated into season 4, episode 1, for all debts public and private, when New York City mob boss Carmine tells Tony that he heard about his recent backyard party and that a Don doesn't wear shorts. However, real life ex-mob capo and street boss Michael Franzese disputes this claim, whereas his father Sonny wore shorts on a regular basis. Interesting. All right. 4 members of the northern New Jersey's only real-life mob family, the DeCavalcanes, were secretly taped in 1999 by federal investigators talking about the similarity to the fictional DeMeo Soprano crime family. On tape, one mobster asks another, "Is this supposed to be us?" His capo buddy replies, "You are in there. They mention your name in there." Interesting. Life meeting art, art imitating life. Some other Sopranos trivia. Once again, you guys are watching IMDb filmmaker commentary. We live stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Chop it up on a classic movie or a TV show. In this case, The Sopranos. If you ain't seen The Sopranos, remember the show, drop a comment on what you remember about it, what you liked about it, if you hated the ending or if you hated the show. You can chop it up. Discourse is always welcome. Lorraine Bracco was originally asked to play Carmela Soprano. Okay, so I knew it was one of those things where they asked her to play that. And then obviously she felt the part was too similar to Goodfellas. She decided Dr. Melfi would be more challenging, which I respect. I think that was really cool that she took on that stance. Now, to settle salary disputes for season 4, James Gandolfini gave each main cast member $33,000 from his own pocket. Okay. When asked if there would be a movie based on the series, James Gandolfini jokingly replied that it would only happen when David Chase goes broke. Nearly 14 years after the end of the series, David Chase produced the prequel Many Saints of Newark, which I mentioned earlier. I saw that. I think I ended up streaming that, even though it did come out in theaters. Series creator David Chase had one rule for the scenes at Dr. Melfi's office: no camera movements. Okay, interesting. So there was no camera panning, no zooming in or nothing. All right. Ray Liotta was a top choice to play Tony Soprano, but he turned it down, stating he did not want to commit to a TV series. That would have been a bad cast. That would have been, as much as I love Ray Liotta, you can't. That's going to kind of mess up the Goodfellas sort of legacy. Like, you can't. It's hard to pull. Yeah. So I'm glad they didn't do that. Later, Liotta was in talks to play Ralph Cifaretto, but ended up not taking the part. Ray would end up taking up a role in the prequel film, The Many Saints of Newark. Okay. There was rarely improvisation on set. The scripts were followed verbatim, and any possible change was discussed with David Chase first. Okay, I respect that. James Gandolfini is the only cast member to appear in every episode. All right, so not even Carmela got in every episode. Interesting. Corrado Soprano's nickname, Junior, was taken from the actual nickname used by Tony Sirico when he was a gangster as a young man before he became an actor. Before series creator David Chase chose "Woke Up This Morning" by UK band Alabama 3 from their 1997 debut "Exile on Cold Harbor Lane." He wanted to open every episode with a different song. HBO executives convinced him that viewers needed to be able to identify the show with the theme song. However, every episode ends with a different song. All right, that's very interesting. Yeah, I think that would have been very bad. Like, yeah, I think HBO execs, as much as in the industry, they're lauded for stifling creative development and giving all these notes and being very the corporate sort of overseers. They were spot on with that. They were very spot on with just having like an intro song, and then every episode ends with a different song. And I think Sopranos really led the way with that, because every TV show at this point, last few minutes of the episode, some random song starts, creeping in, and the credits end, and it's always a random song. So I think Sopranos definitely pioneered that. Every episode ends with a different song. But yeah, you definitely need that opening theme song for people to identify it. So yeah, shout out to HBO executives. You guys, those are some really good notes. As of 2007, the show staff had accumulated 6 Primetime Emmy Awards for outstanding writing for a drama series, a record every season, but the second received Emmys for the writing. All right. Tony Sirico only agreed to sign on for the show if it was guaranteed that his character, Paulie Gualtieri, would not be a rat. Interesting. That kind of reminds me of like LL Cool J. I'll give shout out to LL Cool J because he pioneered the black guy starting to not die in movies. We've been dying in movies for decades, ever since we've been in movies, then going in the 60s, 70s, 80s, even early 90s. So LL Cool J put in his contract that his character cannot die. That's why he didn't die in 1998's Halloween H2O. That's why he didn't die in Deep Blue Sea. They tried to put him in the shark's mouth, kind of beat him up a bit. But yeah, LL Cool J didn't die. And I think that was the first wave of like, okay, black guys don't have to die in every movie. So shout out to LL Cool J for being that forward thinking. And Tony Sirico, I think that's interesting. As Sirico explained in James Toback's documentary, The Big Bang, he had served time in prison for robbery. Altogether, Sirico's rap sheet included at least 28 arrests. Reportedly, he briefly appeared in an uncredited role in Godfather 2. Some aspects of Sirico's real life, a brief stint in the military, etc., were added to Paulie's life as well. Okay. The first cable television series to win an Emmy for Outstanding Drama Series. Okay, I did not know that. And you know what? Once again, we got to go back. I think it was maybe 99 or 2000 the first one. This was, once again, cable television, very new to original series. There was no Netflix. There was no streamers. There wasn't really even like AMC wasn't putting out originals yet. It wasn't until 8 years later, like the year The Sopranos ended in 2007. That's where AMC premiered their first original Mad Men. So there was nothing like this, really. You really had HBO. All you really had was HBO as far as first cable series. You had Oz, like Arliss, like Soprano. That was about it. Sure, some other ones I'm missing. Yeah, Wire wasn't out yet. Yeah. So this was like a pinnacle, like, golden era TV is here. HBO was worried about the title of the series would make people think it was about music naturally. That is why the gun image is in the title logo. The network also considered other titles for the show, such as Made in New Jersey. That would have gotten canceled. Yeah, that show would have lasted a season with that title. In a recent interview with David Chase, that stated some of his favorite characters include Christopher and Junior, mainly due to their self-pity, arrogance, and selfishness. That's based. That's fair too. Steve Van Zant's Dante character was based on a character of the same name in a short story Van Zant wrote and showed to series creator David Chase. How crazy is that? Shout out to Steven Van Zant, part of the infamous Springsteen, E Street Band, and once again, funny. Obviously he never acted before. That was the whole thing about it at the time. Like Steven plays the Silvio character so great, even though like he literally had little to no acting experience. He was like the front man, one of the band members of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band. But he played that Silvio role like nobody's business. All right, more trivia. About to wrap it up in a few minutes here. Michael Imperioli is the only major cast member whose only major cast member whose credits also include writing or co-writing for the series, having worked on 5 episodes. Appearing as a reoccurring role, Tony Kaleem as Angie Bompasori also wrote one script and served as a story editor in 5 episodes. All right. During seasons 2 to 3, Steve Scrippa had to wear a fat suit in order to play Bobby Bacala. Because, those early seasons, season 2 to 3, this guy had a stomach, a gut like no other. So I think a lot of people at the time, we thought, man, that guy really is that fat. But it turns out he was wearing the fat suit. I remember hearing about that a few years after the series ended. Series creator David Chase was a longtime fan of Steven Van Zandt's music and had always wanted to write a role for him. When Chase saw Van Zandt induct the Rascals into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he invited him to audition for the role of Tony Soprano. Even though he had never acted before, Van Zandt did not want to take a role away from a real actor, so Chase wrote the role of Silvio Dante for him. The Rascals performance footage ended up being featured in season 1 episode 7, Down Neck. All right, I think that's a great way to end it. All right, so we went a little long for IMDb Filmmaker Commentary. Once again, I'm your host, Hayward Crawford. I'll be back, or Hayward Hal Crawford, either one. I'll be back on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Probably going to go back and forth between a TV show, and a movie. But feel free to comment. What is your favorite memories from The Sopranos? Have you ever watched the show? Do you plan to watch it? What were your thoughts on the finale? Who was your favorite Sopranos character? Let me know. Comment, like, share, subscribe. As these shows continue, eventually we'll be bringing on guests. I had my friend Nick Conadera come in, and we talked about the Jack Nicholson classic 5 Easy Pieces. So this show will be ongoing. It won't always just be me or my talking head. There will be people we bring in as we talk about different movies and TV shows. So I really enjoyed this, and I will continue to do it, even though our audience is small / non-existent. I still appreciate what we're building here, and looking forward. So I'm about to be out, guys, and we'll talk to you guys next time on IMDb Filmmaker Commentary. See you next time.